conversations that people are having, and some of these very small details of how class is observed, that I think you would either have to be British or very well versed in sort of at least writing about the British class system to understand. Now, hi, it's Ricarda, aka the .303 Bookworm, and today I've got a book for you. It's fairly old, it's from the mid-2000s, and it's Snobs by Julian Fellowes. Now, I'm wildly assuming that you know who Julian Fellowes is. He's written many famous, mostly TV shows, but also the movie Gosford Park, for which he rightfully received an Academy Award. He's the creator of Downton Abbey and The Gilded Age. And he is not my favorite writer. I genuinely think that the only reason why he doesn't write soap operas is because he writes everything in this very stately setting. You always have the country houses and high society, and the reason why he can do that and can do that realistically is because that's his lived experience. He is very much a member of the British upper class, and his wife at least is an aristocrat. I think he's actually in the House of Lords, but as a lifetime peer. And that the whole thing about the entail in Downton Abbey is partially based on the fact that the title in his wife's family was entailed away from her, and he was tremendously bitter about that. Now, this book is set in the mid-90s, so at some point in the book you have Labour coming into power, and you have the character called Edith, and she is sort of pushed. She's upper middle class, and she's pushed by her mother towards a man called Charles, who is the son of a marquis. And it's really about, you know, how Edith marries into this very rich, very upper class family, how she struggles, how things happen. She eventually leaves her husband. There's the question, will they get back together or not? And just people are generally horrible to her because she's upper middle class. And you have a character who's very obviously based on Fellowes, who's the narrator, who's kind of, you know, the observer in the corner, who people occasionally go to. And yet he, I don't know, it's interesting because you have this narrator, but then at times you appear to also have an omniscient narrator. It doesn't really work together very well. But I mean, as the story goes, it's okay. Like I said, not an awful lot happens. So what is it? It's a society satire. Okay, cool. Lots of those, lots of good ones. This I would consider a very middling one. And what made this book interesting to me is that it cements something for me, a belief about Julian Fellowes, which is that there is one segment of society that he hates above all else, and that is the upwardly mobile middle class. And if you watch any of his shows and any of his things, if you have a person who has money and somehow the money is new and they wish to be members of the upper classes, the only way that can ever be acceptable is if they're American. But you can never have an upwardly mobile middle class person who wants to be a member of the upper class, importantly, who wants to be a member of the upper class, who is not either a villain or an idiot. Unless, as I said, they're American, because that's partially the story of the Gilded Age, and while he likes to have a complex female character that you love to hate, and he has that definitely. Bertha Russell in The Gilded Age, there isn't this. He has a certain weird deference towards rich Americans, which again is interesting. So really, he hates there's, I think, really two characters in here he absolutely hates, and that's Edith's mother, who pushes her towards this. Edith is just sort of this pawn and a bit of an idiot, but her mother is sort of the Carol Middleton. And if you don't recall this, when Prince William and Kate Middleton, as she then was, were dating, there was a lot of talk about the fact that her mother had pushed her in his direction, and that there had been certain things that she had done and her mother had pushed it to make sure that she was put in his way. And then there was a biography, which was a very fawning biography of Kate Middleton, which kind of cemented that idea in a lot of ways, because of the way it was trying to paint it as no, it was all just coincidence. Like, well, I'm not making it sound like a coincidence. And there were a lot of people who were very disdainful of Carol Middleton because of this, and particularly because she was a flight attendant. So apparently there were people in sort of the aristocratic circles who were, every time that Kate Middleton showed up, would say doors to manual and things like that. So you have the mother figure in that, and then you also have the brother-in-law, who is also upwardly mobile and rich and everything, and he's just horrible. There are certain things where I say, I'm not sure to what extent you would understand the intricacies of some of the conversations that people are having, and some of these very small details of how class is observed, that I think you would either have to be British or very well versed in sort of at least writing about the British class system to understand. Now, I do like class and comedy. I do like that kind of thing. It's just, for me, maybe it's the fact that I just personally don't like Julian Fellowes very much. It's not that I didn't enjoy the book at all. It's just that I felt that his message, his stand on the whole thing, was so very clear that I really kind of felt, okay, I get it. You prefer people to stay in their place. Great, you do you. But why are you telling me this? And genuinely, having read this novel, my reaction really is, no, but seriously, why are you telling me this? Which, granted, is in a lot of ways my reaction to a lot of Julian Fellowes, but the difference between this and his television work is that when he does writing for television, and I don't count, for instance, Belgravia there, because Belgravia is based on a novel that he wrote, is that he is clearly, to an extent, responsive to what the actors do with the characters he writes. So he writes characters that are often very thin, and then he gets lucky in the actors that they hire, and then he adjusts the writing over time. And here you are just stuck with his writing, which, as I said, it's middling. His character writing, which again is middling. He is much like Quentin Tarantino. He's a great magpie. He knows who to steal from. And usually his best storylines, his best characters are just cribbed from someone else. And that works. So I think that really, purely on the page, Julian Fellowes does not work as well as he does on television. He is very insular in his view and his experience of life, and it's quite interesting because, particularly in the Gilded Age, this was funny that they had a character, and it was Peggy Scott, and she was the only black character in it. And originally, she was supposed to be a maid, and I don't think she had much of a story. And then the actress pointed out to him that there were stories, that New York had a black upper class, and that might be a more interesting story. And actually, that, I mean, there were some hiccups with the writing of that as well, but as he researched this, he found out facts that just on their own made for good stories and made it a more interesting show for it. He also had, yeah, I mean, he clearly is very lucky with the actors who are casting this. Snobs was never made into a movie or a TV version. It would be interesting if it would be now, because no, I don't think it will be, and I don't think it deserves it either. I would class this as a solid 3-star read. I still have Belgravia on my TBR pile, even though I don't know. This is the first Julian Fellowes novel that I read, and I wasn't that impressed, to be honest. I watched Belgravia and I wasn't that impressed with it either. So I don't know. If anyone's read Belgravia and you have an opinion on it, tell me, should I, having read this and rated it to 3 stars, should I give Belgravia a try, or should I skip it? Personally, if you're looking for something sort of fluffy-ish with a little bit of social satire to read, you could do worse than this, and you could probably, well, you could certainly do better. Yeah, solid 3 stars. If you find it on a shelf, by all means read it, but I don't think I would spend any money on getting it again. Anyway, if you have your own recommendations for what would be a superior social comedy, please let me know below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye.